Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Redline Narratives podcast. I'm your friendly neighborhood engineer, Marlon Solomon. And today on the Redline Narratives, we are dealing with the big one. The shutdown is over. We lost. The Confederates won. And now we are in a situation where we've got to pick up the pieces. But before we get into all of that, I want to ask you to donate a like and subscribe to the Afrimerican Academy, which is a nonprofit here in Boston. Your like and subscribe is not for nothing. It's going to help out our mission to nurture the culture to thrive and provide more content like this, as well as youth programs, research into African American history, and a whole lot more. So we hope you enjoy this episode. Hit the like and subscribe. We're on Substack, on YouTube, and Instagram, Redline Narratives. So let's jump into it. All right. Oh my goodness. I am so pissed off. I can't tell you how much over the last 2 or 3 days I've been looking at what's happening. And first, when I saw it on TV, I really couldn't even believe it. But there it was. 8 centrist Democrats have decided all of a sudden to, I don't know what they're thinking, going back on the promise to hold out until the Confederates give us the American, the Affordable Care Act, right, for the next year, right? That was what was proposed by the Democrats on Friday. So when I heard on Sunday that, oh my God, they've already changed, I was like, man, what happened? I dug into it. I've seen a lot of these YouTube videos, so I came to bring you a lot of the narratives that's going on around this issue. But my take is very simple, and it's what I've been saying ever since. It's the reason why we started this podcast, in an effort to get the information that you need to hear out there. Because what happens to these Democrats is they've got the wrong software loaded. They've got the wrong narratives in their brains. So they're operating on a wrong narrative. That's why it's so surprising and shocking that people that literally had one of the greatest election days last week, which in essence was a mandate from the American people to fight, right? Fight back. Do what you got to do. We got your back. That's what the American people said. And they just can't read the room. So is it that they can't read the room, or are they reading the room wrong? And that's my thing. They're not reading the room wrong. They're not reading the room right. They're going on this old school idea that we're dealing with a group of people that we disagree with that are American, which would be Republicans, the proper traditional Republicans. They still think they're dealing with that group. They don't understand that that group was deep stated by the Confederates. So they kicked all of them out of there, and they got this Confederate group that has taken over. And this Confederate group is fighting to dismantle the United States, that is in direct contradiction to what they want, which is the Confederate States of America, which is a Christian nationalist agenda, which means that this is a holy war. Now, for those of you who were alive during 9/11, you understand. The holy war is it's a higher level because you're operating because of God is on your side. Okay, it's not a political level. It's not a discussion about policy. These people are at war, and this is an existential threat to the United States of America, and the senators don't realize it. They think this is going to be a discussion, a talk, something that we can get around, and we're going to get into this. Not just me saying this. But this is why narratives matter. Narratives matter because they give permission structures. They allow things to happen and things to be said because you're not dealing with a normal political dispute. You're dealing with people who are dedicated to destroying what America is all about. They are being treasonous like their Confederate ancestors. And because you still want to believe that they're they're honest brokers. You want order because you're moderates. That's the problem. Our moderates, which are basically a right-wing, like the most right-wing the Democrats you can get. And they see their cousins, the Confederates, and this is a historical pattern going back to Reconstruction, that they capitulate because they're trying to bring the country together. But I'm sorry, oil and water don't mix. You can't bring people together. You can't bring right and wrong. I always say, not that I'm super religious, but I always say that, God is very divisive. There's right and there's wrong. There is no middle ground. And I don't expect God to be in cahoots with the devil. So I don't expect us that are fighting for human rights, human dignity, for people not to be hungry, for people to have health care, because they will die if they don't get their health care. I don't expect to mix with that. So the fact that you felt that you're going to make this last another month and then come back to it and they promised, we're going to get into why it's all empty promises, but at the end of the day, the story is real. We are on a wartime footing. We're not here to be, always the adults in the room, which is what the great Mehdi Hassan says. I got a lot of great videos lined up, so we're going to jump into it real soon. But I just wanted to make sure people understand that this is not a joke. For the next generation, we're going to be fighting this battle. When we fight this battle, we win. We have to go to our friends like Canada and go, look, guys, we're never going to do this again. And they are looking to America and say, is it possible that another Trump is going to happen again? Because if that's the case, we can't trust America. We can't do business with you because you might not be America. You might be the Confederate States of America. And that's what this is all about, brothers and sisters. That's what this is all about. Let's talk about the real narrative so we can come up with a real solution. All right? So once again, please, all the videos that you'll see that I'm about to show you are available right now on Redline Narratives podcast and on Afrimerican TV. You can check out the multiculture and the Confederate culture playlist. That's where you'll find it. And without further ado, let's jump into these videos. So first one's up was Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. I thought we should start with a little bit of brevity. We should start with a little bit of humor. You have to call it paradise, so you just stay positive sometimes, not ignoring what it really means, obviously, but nonetheless, we've got to do what we've got to do. So let's jump into this video and I'll get to you on the other side.
I can't believe it.
I couldn't too.
For Wendy,
I couldn't either.
I can't believe it. Edvard Munch scream emoji doesn't quite convey how much
you can't effing believe it.
Believe it. And what, you ask, is it? Well, it is the Democrats. You remember the Democrats? They shut down the government last month for a very particular reason.
Any deal must secure the extension of the ACA tax credits.
This is about my party saying enough is enough.
Democrats
enough is enough.
will not back down.
Do not.
We're not going to back down.
We're in this fight until we win this fight because we know
Win the fight till we win the fight.
It's literally life or death. So Democrats
Life
have
or death.
3 words for this. No way.
Well, funny story.
Right.
Yes, Charles Schumer's 3 words were no match for these 5 other words.
Democrats cave on the shutdown.
Excuse me? Cave on the shutdown? Huh? not this forceful, young, authentic Democratic Party that hangs out down by the river.
Oh my God, he went in. There were a lot of other shows, Stephen Colbert, everybody did a great job, but I wanted to just, because I just thought that him playing exactly what they said is really what I'm actually more worried about. Now remember, they asked us that when the authoritarians are coming, the one thing the authoritarian is trying to do is trying to punk you to the point where you think you've lost and give up on your own, right? You self-deport. And in the end of the day, that's exactly what they did. You can see where they've started. The trust is broken. They're the ones saying that it's life and death. We're not going to stop until we win. So the next time they say that, what is that supposed to mean? What are we supposed to do? I think the American people are going to suck it up and just know we have some very inept leaders, and that's our first move, is to get rid of these leftovers. You see, we need to deep state our party, but we're not going to do it the way the Republicans did. But we do need to deep state our party, because the new ideologies in the more updated version, because they were under attack, to them anyway, they were being drowned out by progressive ideology, like everyone's human. And so they developed, but we didn't develop because we were kind of on the side of the right, and not the right politically, but we were right. There is climate change. We're based in facts, and we have not done that for our group. So we have a lot of old ideology, the moderates that are in our party that are still in control, still practicing their white supremacy, because even though they're not necessarily evil as such, they're still using the infrastructure they inherited from their parents. So in essence, what I'm saying is that if your parents were rich, you're rich. If your parents understood and had great education, went into politics, you did the same. And then now you are trying to help people that are less fortunate from your high perch on the Cape, right? In the Hamptons, living it up, and you're looking down on us. Go, how do we help the poor people? But guess what? You can't speak to hunger because there has not been hunger in your community for generations in some cases. So no matter how you say, I'm starving, it don't sound like I'm hungry. And that's basically it in a nutshell, right? So they've lost their trust, and I think that is where I'm wanting to see, although I do think that with what Trump and his administration is doing in terms of destroying a lot as far as what America really is, I think that's still going to inspire, and it's going to dampen a bit, but in the end of the day, it's kind of like when you've got that older member of your family that's not doing so well, but you're still giving them the benefit of the doubt, still supporting them. Yeah, that's what we're going to have to do until we get them out, because we don't have any options. This is a war. They're trying to literally, isn't that what we're complaining of, that Israel is doing to Gaza? They're starving people. They are starving. Yes, it's not to the same extent, but it is a good qualitative comparison. It's not a quantitative comparison. So don't go, oh my God, it's not the same. How could you compare the same? People, there is a government that is making people more hungry and more likely to die. That is a qualitative comparison that is accurate. Not on the same scale, granted, but qualitatively is correct. Right? So we've got to do what we've got to do, because at the end of the day, we are going to be, my thing is not working. All right. All right, I'm moving like that. So we are, like I said, in a situation, a very serious situation. If we don't take it like wartime footing, we're never going to get there. So let us, this is from the Assembly required with Stacey Abrams. Of course, Stacey Abrams, Democratic firebrand, part of the group that we need, not these passive Democrats. And she has some great words on this issue. She's going to give us, she articulates it very well. So watch this clip and we'll get back to it on the other side.
Last night, 8 Democrats voted to invoke cloture, the first step towards ending the Republican government shutdown. The arguments were reasonable. People are frustrated and things are only going to get worse the longer the shutdown drags on. Federal workers are facing real economic pain, and the responsible thing to do is to compromise with Republicans to move forward. The underlying demand of extending the ACA tax credits got rejected, and in a stalemate, someone has to show judgment. In regular times, this show of performative pragmatism might be heralded. Once again, the Democrats show that they are the only adults in the room. But these are not regular times. America is undergoing an authoritarian overthrow, and business as usual is no match for those who do not believe that the government should do its job. This is not a partisan fight between Democrats and Republicans. This is a battle between the type of government we have, a democracy that responds to the needs of the people, or the government they want, a tyrannical consolidation of power where Americans are pawns to be sacrificed.
Please notice these
Democracy
narratives.
versus authoritarianism.
Exactly what I'm
That's
saying.
the battle. To believe otherwise is dangerously naive. Republicans have been very clear. They will starve children, the elderly, and the disabled in order to fund billionaire tax breaks.
Yes.
They've threatened governors and grocery stores that try to fill in the gap from missing SNAP benefits. Republicans have forced workers to go without pay, but commanded their attendance and refused to promise that they'll ever be compensated. They will cancel flights to aggravate travelers, hoping the pain will force capitulation. Republicans will bankrupt Head Start to rob poor children of education and ratchet up pressure on already straining systems. And Republicans at every level of government have been very clear that they will risk millions of families going without health care rather than extend a tax credit for one more year. This isn't about politics. This is about power. And until Democrats at the highest levels of government get this, we are in deep trouble. The real harm Republicans are inflicting on American families is not up for debate.
Right.
What we must decide, though, is if we're going to accept decisions that don't serve us. Yesterday's decision tells the GOP that if they are mean enough, cruel enough, and patient enough, we will give up.
Mean enough, cruel enough, and patient enough. That we will give up is exactly what we are dealing with. This is exactly what the problem is. Now, she went over a lot. I thought that the way she talked about the pain was extremely important. The way she talked about all the different things that this administration is doing. It's deliberate pain. These are terrorists. These are people holding the country as hostage. And the Democrats folded because, the pain was too much. Well, unfortunately, you don't understand how bullies work. When you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. So yes, I get it. People are starving. I'm one of those people that are experiencing hardships because of healthcare, because of food, because of rising prices, because of funding cuts to the organization. So I'm deep in this, which is why we're doing our podcast. This is our way of fighting back. So I'm not here talking from outside of the pain. I'm all up in the pain. All right? I live in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. Right? And my community is probably one of the more better off communities, but right down the street is Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, and there's a lot of pain. And I mean, we're all living in pain. It's all over. And to think that people are designing this pain, wanting this pain, so that they can, remember this, not agree to having health care for everyone for 1 year. This is the reason. It's not because this is a non-starter. They cannot do it. That's what Senator, the lead Thune said, the Republican, the Confederate. Said it's a non-starter. They can't give you health care for 1 year because, and they're going to cause more pain. And guess what happened? Yep, 7 moderate Democrats and 1 independent voted with them to give them the votes they need to at least move forward. Maybe it'll change. The final vote's supposed to happen on Wednesday, but nonetheless. And they're doing it for what? For power. I hope you realize a lot of the narratives I've been trying to say. And what she's doing is, of course, through her understanding, looking at it through a very generic framework, right? You're talking about the U.S. government versus authoritarianism. We're talking about the government we want versus the government that they want, right? But let's take it back to the historical and cultural roots. You're talking about the Confederacy rising again. The South shall rise again. It says segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. They have been working tirelessly since the Civil Rights Act to destroy the United States of America. Do you know how hard it is to infiltrate the Supreme Court? Not just the courts, the Supreme Court, the presidency, and the Congress. They do all of this work over time. When Obama was letting Merrick Garland, Mitch McConnell stopped Merrick Garland and Obama's Supreme Court nominee, policy. They were fighting for their lives, and they're reaping the benefits now. So all this for the rich, for their rich buddies, it couldn't get no more stark than this, honestly. I really just don't understand how people don't see what's happening, right? And that is what's going on. I mean, it is actually a big travesty. So the next video clip is a little long, but I got it from the Ezra Klein show. He did a whole 5-minute clip, so I'm going to play the whole 5 minutes. It's a bit long, but nonetheless, I think it's important to get his whole take. He is a moderate, so it is kind of important to listen to what he has to say. He got in trouble a little while back for saying that Charlie Kirk was practicing politics in the right way, when we all know that he was very bigoted. But that's another story. So he's got some controversy, but let's listen to Ezra Klein from the New York Times.
What the hell did Democrats just do? They were winning this shutdown. They were. And that's not a small thing. The opposition party, it almost never wins a shutdown. And yet Democrats were actually winning this one. And they're winning it because Trump was acting crazy. Instead of negotiating with them over healthcare subsidies, he was demolishing the East Wing of the White House to build a ballroom. He was throwing Great Gatsby parties at Mar-a-Lago. If you looked at his poll numbers, they were going down. In the CNN poll, he was in the 30s for the first time in his second term. If you looked at the election, Democrats romped to victory. And would I say they romped to victory because of the shutdown? Probably not. But you know who thought it was part of the shutdown? Was Trump. He kept saying Democrats won in part because of the shutdown.
He did say that.
And then over the weekend, a group of more moderate Senate Democrats, led by Angus King, an independent who caucuses with the Democrats, they cut this deal. And the truth is, there's just not much in this deal. They're ending the shutdown here for very little. But the real key of all this, the place where you see Democrats kind of got nothing, was there's nothing on the healthcare subsidies that were supposedly the core of this whole fight. So what happened? Why did they fold? I think to understand what happened here, you have to know that the ACA subsidies were a kind of weird part of this whole shutdown. The energy for the shutdown did not come from healthcare subsidies. It came from the many, many congressional Democrats who feel Trump is forcing the country towards authoritarianism, who felt they could not morally keep funding a government that was being run this way. I think they were right about that. But there weren't enough of them. And so the idea of shutting down over these expanded Affordable Care Act subsidies emerged. And it was the one demand that could hold the entire Senate Democratic caucus together. But it had a couple of problems. One is that even if Democrats won on the healthcare subsidies, for many of them, it wasn't going to solve the problem they were most worried about, which was the authoritarianism. Two, you had a bunch of Senate Democrats who really didn't want to do this at all. They were just going along with their colleagues. And then three, and this was the hardest thing for Democrats to talk about, even though they talked about it internally. Of course, Democrats wanted to extend health insurance subsidies. They care about the Affordable Care Act. They passed those subsidies in the first place. But weren't they handing Donald Trump, weren't they fighting to hand Donald Trump a huge political gift? Premiums are going to more than double for millions of Americans, 20 million-ish Americans. And Donald Trump and the Republicans are going to be blamed for that. It is going to be another way in which they let prices go up. And to this strange inverted political logic, if Democrats won the fight, they would be neutralizing what might be their best issue against Republicans in 2026. If Republicans won the fight, they would be handing Democrats a cudgel to beat them with in 2026. So what happened here? Why then, having started this fight, did Democrats give it up for very little? The basic answer was Trump wasn't negotiating with them. And the Senate moderates, who never really wanted a shutdown to begin with, could not take the pain that it was causing their constituents and, in their view, the country. You had hundreds of thousands of federal workers who were furloughed or fired. Some of them were facing eviction. They were not able to pay their rent. You had hungry families that were cut off from food assistance. You now had the threat, the growing reality of flights being canceled at airports all across the country. And you had all these other things happening too. There's a lot the government does that does not make the headlines that we don't pay that much attention to, but they were seeing it. They were getting calls from their constituents. And I want to give them their due because they feel they were making the moral choice. They do not feel that holding out longer would have made Trump cave. So they looked at this and they thought, we've caused enough pain. We're not going to get what we want here. Let's get out of it. I would not, if I were in the Senate, vote for this deal. I think they're getting out of it for nothing. And I think if Donald Trump wants to cancel flights across Thanksgiving in order to refuse to lower healthcare prices for Americans, he wants to make his priority so exquisitely clear to people, why not let him do that? This is a difference, I think, between Democrats who understand that they're in an intentional fight for power right now, right? They need to win the attention wars against Trump. They need to make clear who he is to the American people. And then Senate Democrats are still treating this like it's normal, like it's just back and forth on policy, like we're just in a normal political moment. I don't think we're in a normal political moment. But what I do think is that this was a skirmish, not the war. This was about positioning for next year, not about winning policy concessions this year. And so did Democrats win the shutdown? They definitely did not win the shutdown. The shutdown is ending and they got relatively little. But in the fight for positioning in politics, which is what this really was, they ended up a bit better than they started. People know the healthcare subsidies are expiring. They know Republicans want to let the healthcare subsidies expire. If they do expire, the American people are now set up to blame Republicans for that, which is correct. It will be Republicans' fault if that happens. So did Democrats win the shutdown? No. But they didn't lose it either. They ended up a little bit better than they started. And given how badly opposition parties usually do in shutdowns, that's not nothing.
Oh, Ezra. I mean, he does make some good points. And the moderate, I'm not trying to be moderate right now. So I get where he's coming from. And to be honest, I think, we just need to vent a little bit. But he's right. In the end of the day, and I think, well, let me just say it like this. What makes this very painful is that we were winning, like he said, and if they want to continue making it so it's hard for people to get to their families on Thanksgiving, let them do it. If they think it's great for people not to be able to afford Thanksgiving dinner, let them do it. You have the American people that gave you a mandate last year. Seems like a year, doesn't it? Last year, and they gave you that mandate, and that mandate says that, of course, everyone wants to text me now. I should have turned this off. All right. So, They want to give you, they gave you a mandate last week that you should fight, and you decided that you wouldn't fight. And that's why everyone's pissed off, because everything that happened would be blamed on the Republicans. They're literally going to a court to stop people from getting their food stamps because they want to force the Democrats to capitulate, and they did. But one thing about it, you cannot negotiate with terrorists because they'll only come back for more. Especially Trump, that once you give in, he's coming for you again. That's what bullies do. Goes back to what I'm saying. These moderates, like he said, Ezra said, it's not normal political times. They're acting like this is just normal political discussion on policy. Another way of saying that, they're operating on the wrong narrative. They do not understand that this is a war. Yes, the war doesn't have guns and violence. You know, like we're not going to stand with the cannons ablazing at Gettysburg. But this is a war nonetheless, right? So it's even softer in essence, well, at this point, than the civil rights movement, because you know how many people died during the civil rights movement? But that was the war too. But once again, these moderates always capitulate, because in essence, they do not feel threatened by the actions of the Confederates, which means they're kind of in this gray zone where it's not going to hurt them that much. They can still think that there's a way to solve it. Man, grow up. Okay? I'm half Nigerian. I grew up in Nigeria. I've seen real poverty and real tough times when you live in authoritarian. I've lived under coups when coups actually happened. You don't understand how tough you need to be, and maybe that's that's why I said some of this is necessary. We got to go through. These are the growing pains, right? And that's why I see this. Like he said, this is not the war, this is a battle. We have lost this battle, but we're well positioned for the future, because now, guess what happens? So that means, because if they pass this, the health premiums are skyrocketing. Then people are going to be off their health care. Then you're going to have all the videos of the people that need their oxygen. I need some of my meds, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford it. There's so many different things that are going to happen, and we are going to have all of that ammo for when it really matters. But the question is, there might not be an election in 26. You really think that that's just guaranteed? Wait, they're talking about it like, oh no, of course it's going to happen. Because they believe in order, not justice. This is what the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said. And in fact, I mentioned it in my Substack. Please go and subscribe to my Substack, where I talk about the letter from Birmingham, because that's exactly what he was talking about. The white moderates who don't want, they want a negative peace, which is the presence of order, but not of justice. And so far we're orderly, and everything is quiet and calm, and I'm not perturbed. Then we can have a discussion. Girl, you got it all wrong. All right. So now this is a pure example. Now this is from Senator Adam Schiff, who's a senator now from California, and I listened to the whole podcast, but the end really pissed me off. Let's get into it, and that's what I'm going to show you, man.
So what is the remedy? What is left to be done? And at this point, I think the only thing that is left to be done is the same thing we saw last Tuesday, and that is you, the citizens. You ultimately have all the power here that's necessary to save this country, because the fight over healthcare last night wasn't just about healthcare. The fight back in March wasn't just about government funding either. It was also about our democracy. It was about standing up to a president who is dismantling one check, one balance after another, who wants to make himself some kind of king or dictator. It is also about fighting for our democracy. One of the reasons I felt so strongly about voting against the bill last night is that to me it seemed the same fight that our universities and our law firms, that our media organizations, even late night comedians are engaged in, the same fight. And much as I called my university president when these attacks on universities started and said, stand tall, stand firm, do not give in to this president, much as I called my law school president and saying the same thing, much as I called my own law firms to say the same thing,
unbelievable,
I would have had us stand firm and reject this extortion by the president. But ultimately, the only real check on this president's power is you. Ultimately, it's not going to come from Senate Republicans who are too much in his thrall, too unwilling to stand up to anything he does. It's not going to come from House Republicans.
How is that different from the Democrats?
AWOL for months. It's not going to come from the Supreme Court that has rubber-stamped so much illegality.
And it's not going to come from Democrats either.
Certainly not going to come from any change of
heart. Well, this version of Democrats.
Cruel and corrupt president. It is going to have to come from you, the most important players in this democracy.
Right, you're right about that.
And you will have your opportunity next November.
Next November. What jokers? That's the part that really pissed me off, y'all, was when he said next November. It is November now. Do you see what happened in the last 9 months, 10 months, 11 months, whatever? Do you see? Are you paying attention? Do you really think we can survive another year of this? You think that's so guaranteed? But he was right about one thing. He said that, all the power rests with us, the citizens. You're right about that, Mr. Schiff. But guess what? We have the power to get you out. And I think that's where it starts. Let's clean house first. We're at the beginning. Like, this is a battle. And we're now going up to fight. And we now realize some of the troops, some of our leaders, some of the people that represent us can't represent us in wartime. All right? It happens. Right? Not everybody's built to be in a foxhole. I get that. So we just got to get him out. So while he thinks this is about, he was mentioning, the Republicans. You can't hope the Republicans are going to be able to do it. The Supreme Court, the Supreme Court. I said, what about the Democrats? We can't trust you to do it either. When all the good, strong voices, Mandani didn't get any support. Carolyn Crockett, AOC, the squad, all of them have been, radicals. These are the people that speak for the hunger. These are the people, Ayanna Pressley, these are the people that come from the community, that are speaking in the language of the people in the community. They don't need translators. They don't need political consultants because they're living it. They just have to call somebody in their family. Sorry if I'm getting loud, but that's exactly, this segment really pissed me off. You know what? They're now sidelining. Do you hear any mention of Kamala Harris, who is supposed to be the leader of the party? Because when you have a nominee, whether she loses or not, she's supposed to be the leader of the party. But because she lost, oh my God, no, it's because she's an African-American woman that went up with all the odds up against her, did a great job, but said everything that is happening. You can literally run it verbatim. If I was her, I'd be the first one. And that's part of her problem. She's been maybe infiltrated a little too much by the moderates, and she's listening too much to consultants. The thing maybe is like it rubs off on you. You start getting, it's infectious, like COVID, right? This is like a moderate coronavirus where you are going to sit there and constantly be infected with it, and eventually you'll start capitulating too. But we should be saying Kamala was right, because the narrative behind that is that, we were never wrong, right? We haven't changed what we are saying. It's just that when she was saying it, nobody believed that this was actually a reality. But now that we look back on it, with hindsight is 2020, granted. But now that we look back on it, we look at she actually understated it. He was an authoritarian. He's going to have what was one of her lines? Well, she's going to have a to-do list. He's going to have a revenge list. That's not going to happen. Oh, she's being hyperbolic. She wasn't. But if you don't hold her up, you're basically saying like you're just coming up with some new idea now, not like you've been right all along. And that gives you your credibility, which goes to trust. And how are we going to trust you, Democrats, if you can't deliver on something as basic as just hold your team together, which is why I think there's going to be a lot of heads rolling in the leadership, and it's about time, and that's what we need to do. All right? I don't know. Can you impeach some of these people? Can we impeach them? Is there a way, is there a mechanism to impeach them for this dereliction of duty? Because at the end of the day, people's premiums are going to go up. And even if the premiums are going to go up regardless, you have to make it as painful as possible for them to achieve that. You can't just make it easy for them. They're laughing at you. If you hear the things Republicans are saying, I have a few clips on here about that. OMG. In the end of the day, we have a saying in Africa. When two elephants are fighting, it's the grass that suffers. In this case, it's an elephant and a donkey. But nonetheless, the grass is still suffering. All right? So let's get into, we have some more Black woman joy over here. Joy Reid Show. Go subscribe. Remember, all these videos are available on Afrimerican TV. And I'll talk to you in the other
Obamacare subsidies. And I have said to you guys many, many times before, Republicans don't believe in that. And they're never going to do it. But Jeanne Shaheen and company all said, you know what, we're going to give them a chance. And then they're going to give us a vote in December. And then we're going to get the opportunity. Let me just let you hear herself. Here's Jeanne Shaheen, one of the people who ended the shutdown on CNN, trying to justify.
If this vote comes, I mean, as you say, it's guaranteed in December. This vote comes and fails, and the subsidies then expire. Does this effort that you just went through, this vote that you have just taken, will it have been still worth it, or will this feel like a failure?
No, because we are not going to give up. We're going to continue to fight on making sure that healthcare costs are affordable for Americans, and they are going to know who's on their side and who is not. And we are going to take this fight into the next elections in 2026 and make sure, again, that Americans know who's fighting for them.
Okay, many problems with that. That is the kind of standard Democratic government speak that has cost them election after election after election. Jeanne Shaheen sounding like your typical moderate, middle-of-the-road Democrat saying, well, Americans are going to know we fought for them. So it was basically a symbolic shutdown in which real people suffered. People were standing in bread lines and food lines, having to get free food from churches and stuff. And you're saying if this was all just about letting people know who's fighting for them? I think people know Republicans don't give a shit about them. I don't think this is news to them, Jeanne, that Republicans don't care if you starve. Like, I don't think that's news to them. I think people knew that. And that Trump was that was what you were trying to accomplish. And you felt you've now accomplished that. Now that people have actually missed like mortgage payments, Jeanne. Mortgage payments. Now people suffering for that. It's all fine because now people know who's fighting for them. And then we're not gonna stop fighting. Because Jeanne, you should know if you're halfway intelligent, that the Republicans are never going to vote through to extend the subsidies. If they wouldn't do it under the threat of people in their own districts losing food stamps, why are they going to do it in December right before Christmas? Right. You think they're going to suddenly, right before the Christmas holidays, suddenly change their minds and give you the votes to extend these subsidies that they don't believe in?
They don't believe in it.
The same people who've tried to overturn Obamacare 60 times. They're going to do that, Jeanne? Why are they going to do that? I'm sorry, my voice is getting high-pitched. I'm getting upset. You know who doesn't see the logic that Jeanne, and then we're gonna fight it in the next election, Jeanne. We might not have free and fair elections in 2026, Jeanne. 2026 is too late. You really think that you're just going to wait it out? And then after next year, we're going to do some bipartisan talking. We're going to do some bipartisan jawing. And when we're finished jawing with our Republican friends, everyone's going to see where they, and then we're going to fight it in the next. Wrong. Jeanne Shaheen's own daughter was like bullshit. Jeanne Shaheen's own daughter.
Her own daughter. Watch.
Stephanie Shaheen, who is currently running to represent New Hampshire's 1st congressional district, came out against the shutdown deal that her own mother, Senator Jeanne Shaheen, helped negotiate, and passed through the Senate yesterday alongside 7 Democratic colleagues. This is from the Huffington Post. Critics, including the younger Shaheen, say the deal does nothing to guarantee that health care subsidies for millions of Americans will not expire, causing health costs to skyrocket. It stipulates that the Senate must hold a vote on extending the health care benefits, sure, but it does nothing to ensure the House will act and surrenders the leverage that Democrats had. Quote, improving health care has been the cause of my life. It is why I am running for Congress, Ms. Shaheen said in a statement, so I cannot support this deal when Speaker Johnson refuses to even allow a vote to extend health care tax credits.
Crazy, 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 deranged. All right, let me get back into my composure. Nah, man, this is crazy. They don't believe in it. That's the number one thing I wrote down. Is what about the fact that were you not there when they've been ever since Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act was passed, they've been trying to repeal it, destroy it, and we can't even say the right words. They're defunding Obamacare. That they can't get it done through the legal pattern, so they're going to undermine it from the bottom by making it not work, making it implode, making it too expensive, so it dies out. Why? So they can have private health insurance, because see, that's what they want to do. They want everything to be private so their buddies can make money off of it. And they will sell you things that are your human rights. See, that's the thing. We need to separate needs from wants, and if you need something, then it's your human right because you need it. It's not an option. It's not about capitalism at this point. It's about somebody dying if they don't get what they need. That's why it's a need. Right? And they don't believe in it. They have tried to eliminate Obamacare 60 times. And then you think that in a month they're going to change? People are starving. The airplanes are full. Was it? I don't think that was related to, but there was an airplane that flew out the sky. But the airplanes are the federal workers are suffering. Right with Thanksgiving is coming. They knew that the traffic and all this other stuff that's going on, the delays were going to be there. That's why they actually went harder, because they knew that they wanted to end as quick as possible, because if it goes into Thanksgiving, they would really be up against the gun. This is the longest government shutdown in American history, 41 days. And you think that there's somewhere you're going to talk and you're going to wait till 2026? Operating on a different narrative, operating on the wrong narrative, an old narrative that this is somehow a policy discussion, instead for existential fight for the country, and you can't give an inch. In the end of the day, they'll still get what they want. But even if they do get what they want, the maximum pain to them has been done. And now you think, we're going to be carrying this fight along. Remember, also, they now have funding for their ICE and, like their full funding and everything. It's going to get crazy. They've broken the law so many times, and you trust them? I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. Even her own daughter, let me say that again. The lady that passed this, the Shaheen, her daughter, as Joyce pointed out, her daughter is against her. That's how bad this is. So, look, guys, if we don't get this narrative out there, we're just going to be in deep stuff. I mean, I can't even tell you how much it is. So, Now, our next clip, right, I'm going to set it up a little bit because Heather Cox Richardson, okay, this lady is my hero. This lady is a superstar. Well, who is she? She is a historian that, I mean, she knows so much about history, and she ties it into current political realities and finds they say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes a lot. And boy, does she find the rhymes. And this is what I'm trying to do with labeling them Confederates, because then that gives you a historical framework to understand this is an intergenerational cult, not just, some group of people that we can talk them out of it. How are you going to untalk over a century of programming, mental programming that dehumanizes people that look like me? Right? So she's going to talk a little bit about the Great Gatsby ideology, because this clip was also important. I wanted to add this so you can see what our dear leader, Donald Trump, is doing right now. Okay? And how much they don't care, and we'll get back to it on the other side.
And we're just living in this second Gilded Age. I did want to show the viewers at home, this image from Mar-a-Lago. I guess it was Halloween night. They were doing the Great Gatsby as a theme for the party at Mar-a-Lago. And he just doesn't care anymore. I mean, he obviously hasn't cared for some time, but he's really just letting it rip. I mean, he is just, it's not let them eat cake, it's let them eat shit, it seems to me. He is just, doesn't matter. We're just gonna do this Great Gatsby thing all across the country. The poor be damned, the hungry be damned. We're gonna get ours. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, you're not showing there the image of the young woman in the cocktail glass.
I saw that.
Or the image of the young women dancing, very scantily clad, for the guests at Mar-a-Lago, which I think is actually part of the story as well. I think, speaking of not caring any longer, having those images at a time when the Epstein files are still hanging out there was very much a way to say to people, expletive you, I think, basically.
Exactly.
In addition to some other stuff going on with that. But, let's put those two things together. You think about the idea of a Great Gatsby party hours before Americans are due to lose their supplemental nutrition assistance program benefits that 42 million Americans rely on. And these are people who are, these are children, these are disabled, these are people who are working full time. These are, these are really important to all Americans, these SNAP benefits. And people have paid a lot of attention to the contrast between Gatsby's world and the world of the poor that are also in that novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald that came out in 1925. But one of the things that I haven't really seen mentioned is, do you remember what Gatsby did for work? Where the money came from?
Oh my goodness.
Gatsby was a bootlegger. Gatsby was a criminal.
Yes.
This was Prohibition. And Gatsby was a criminal, and he worked with or was associated with, in the book, a fictional character, but in the analog in United States history, the man who is alleged to have fixed the 1919 World Series. Well, didn't something happen this weekend?
Yeah.
Throwing a Gatsby party the same weekend as the World Series, as people are running out of SNAP benefits, with a man who is just pardoned the world's richest crypto backer. He's the guy who started Binance, was so in your face. It strikes me as being A, sort of designed that way, but B, if you look at the rest of that interview that Trump did with Norah O'Donnell of CBS News that was recorded on the 31st of October, the man doesn't know if he's a foot or horseback. He's not all there.
Oh, he's not all there. I wanted to play this clip, one, just to show you some of the historical parallels that you may not be willing to, not be knowing. I didn't know anything about the Great Gatsby or that much about the bootlegging and things like that. But I want you to see, I felt this was important just to show what did Jim Acosta say? It's not about let them eat cake, it's like let them eat shit, right? This has happened many times before. And because we're going back to that era, we can't just pick and choose some of the ideas that we want to bring up, because the second underlying narrative to this thing is how much they don't care. They're living in their opulence and their riches, and they simply do not care. Okay? Now you said, no, how much could they really not care? I mean, come on now, they care. I mean, they're human. I would put it to you like this. Because a lot of times when we think of like the past and discrimination, slavery, Jim Crow, we always feel that the that the only victim is African Americans. You're completely right. The primary victim and the target is African Americans. But do you really think that you can show a child somebody getting hung from a tree and then that child not be scarred forever? And do you not think that child's going to grow up with those scars and pass them on and pass them on? The scars are the level of inhumanity that they're capable of. You have to remember, up until the 50s and 60s, people could get lynched in the South, even past into the 70s, people could get lynched in the South, and the white jury would just exonerate everyone. Somebody got killed. Somebody got hung. This is a practice that it's not new. They know exactly what happened. But, because of the white jury, this is the nature of this Confederate ideology. Right? This is the level of hate, and it transfers. Somebody was saying, I was talking to someone about the religious aspect to this, and they said, well, what kind of Christianity? This is not Christianity that they're practicing, And I go, well, let me tell you what. Let me tell you what type of Christianity it is. It is a Christianity, right, that is derived from a Christianity that justifies slavery. I'll say that again. There was a long time ago, the same group used their Christianity to justify slavery. And then it gave birth to a Christianity that justifies segregation and Jim Crow. And it gives birth to what was fighting against the civil rights movement, justifying segregation in the civil rights movement. It gives birth to the kind of Christianity that will separate children from their parents, will take away human rights, will take away health care, will allow people to starve. It's the same Christianity. And this is why I say you got to engage in the narratives. You can't sit there from your moderate perch talking about your metrics and your political consultants when people are talking about hunger, religion, politics that are hardcore in somebody's life. You can't wish that away with some nice talk and some couch language. You have to call it out for what it is. Because only if you define it properly can you defeat it. So that's why I brought that in. Oh boy. So I've been avoiding this slide. But the reason why is because I really don't want to hear it, but it's important you hear what they're saying and how they're framing the narrative to turn you into more of a loser because you capitulated. Here we go.
Mike Johnson, Speaker Johnson, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. So every Republican in the House, every single one, which doesn't happen very often, voted for the clean government funding bill on September 19th. Will they all vote for this compromise, do you think?
I believe they will. The long national nightmare is almost coming to an end now, the beginning of the end, as I said this morning in my press conference. It was long overdue, and the irony is, Jake, it really was a shutdown about nothing. I mean,
shutdown about nothing. Your health care.
Effectively, exactly what we offered them several weeks back. We've added some appropriations bills now, which we're in favor of because it's getting us back to the regular order. We'll take care of some other details, but I don't think Chuck Schumer got anything out of this other than a political show, and sadly, I think that's what he was after the whole time.
So a source.
Unbelievable. So the Democrats ended up being sort of for nothing, apart from riling up and informing all the people about what's going on. But he literally just said that the fight was over nothing. Your people are going to die because of their health premiums shooting up. And to him, that's nothing. He said the words, nothing. And if I'm a Democratic political consultant, I'm telling you, he just said your stuff is nothing. And unfortunately, this is why it hurts so bad, because every time you say that, then they'll say, well, part of your group voted for nothing. And agree with them. They can say all the things they want. This is not music. This is about some gangster stuff. This is not about no quiet in your cape, in your comfortable house, drinking your tea and coffee with buttermilk biscuits, trying to think and triangulate and formulate some magic solution. The magic solution is fight and hold your ground and let them do the flailing. And once again, you're flailing and they're not. And they're sitting there looking all confident, having great Gatsby parties while you're sitting there stressed out and caring. Now, I mean, I do want to say that in ways we understand, but don't have any compassion for these Democrats. We understand that you cared about the people, and you didn't want them to die, and you wanted them to stop suffering, but this doesn't guarantee that he's not going to stop suffering, because you don't have any power. They're still going to make people suffer. They're still going to do it. They don't care. And that's the part that you have to realize. If you're dealing with somebody that's willing to literally make children starve for a political point, then you must go for the gusto. You must fight back to the end. Because yes, people are starving now, but this starvation is cumulative. If I ate well yesterday and I don't eat today, yes, I'm hungry, but I'm not dying. If you let this go on for a long time, then try to make your stand towards the end when people are already they've been suffering for a long time, it's going to be more acute. So you might as well start while we're still healthy, because they're not going to give you what you want. Oh, God, they get me so pissed. I'm sorry. All right, so the next one is Brian Tyler Cohen, great podcast. Like I said, all these podcasts are on our Afrimerican TV YouTube channel. Now, we're going to start shifting to what we can do about it and the attitudes we need to have, and I'll come back to you on the other side of the clip.
I'm joined now by the co-founder of Indivisible, Ezra Levin. Ezra, thanks so much for taking the time.
Hey, great to talk, Brian.
So, Ezra, we're in a situation now where we just watched 8 Senate Democrats capitulate to Republicans to reopen the government without the main concession we were looking for, which was the extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies. In light of this move, you now have a game plan. Can you explain what announcement that is?
Brian, we are launching the largest primary program in the history of Indivisible. We launched it today. You can see it at indivisible2026.org. Look, we've spent the last year trying to convince Democratic leadership and the broader Democratic Party to treat this regime as a real threat, to unify as an opposition party. That started with town halls in February and March, and then hands off in April, and No Kings in June, and No Kings 2 in October. We produced the best election night in a decade plus last week, and the Dems were on the upswing. We were winning this shutdown fight. I want to be clear, we were winning it. The Republicans were on the ropes. Donald Trump's approval ratings were going down. Democrats, they were actually getting plaudits from around the country. People were supporting their position on the shutdown. We were winning. And in response to that, we saw this utter capitulation. I would love nothing more than to be a cheerleader for the Democratic unified opposition. But we have to be real. That after a year of trying to convince this leadership that it should take on this regime and treat it like a serious threat, they're not listening anymore. So we can either give up, which I do not think is acceptable, or we can demand a party that fights back. That's what this plan is. It's not ideological. This isn't about left or right. This is about, do you fight back or do you surrender? We cannot afford a party that surrenders, while the fascists are terrorizing our communities, are invading our cities, and are menacing our democratic institutions. We need a strong, unified Democratic Party that fights. We're not going to get it by asking nicely. We're going to get it by demanding it in the primaries that are coming up.
Well, you heard it right there. The first thing I want to point out about this clip was I like the word regime. I'm trying to adopt it into my narrative. You know, I'm trying to point out to everyone, guys, if, ladies and gentlemen, if the only thing we can do is to change our language, it's hard, but then let's do that. Because you see, every time it sounds like something small. I get it, but if you know how much the Republicans and the Confederates work on their framing, to use the word regime is proper, because that now denotes the authoritarian nature. I say administration? I think I probably said administration on the show, so I'm going to try to work on saying that. If y'all catch me saying it, then please let me know. So I'll stop, because it's hard, right? You're used to saying it. What's the big deal? Regime, administration? It matters, because when it's time, when you build up all these little narratives like death by 1,000 cuts, it turns out to be something that cannot be argued away. And remember, we can't solve problems unless we properly define it. So we got to do this. So we're not fighting an administration, we're fighting a regime. Two different things. See how that works? Now, we were winning. And we were winning in multiple ways. Like I said, last week, the United States, the people of America, gave the Democrats a mandate to fight back. You think the people that were voting some of them weren't on food stamps? Or the people that were voting were all Democrats? He also says a very good thing. This is not about right or left. There were a lot of Republicans that felt lied to. Remember, I talked about why Kamala was right, and they kept on trying to say it was messaging, this and that. It was the fact that they lied. The Republicans, the Confederates lied, and they confused the body politic so much that people who do not pay good attention to the news and what's going on in Washington, D.C., and I don't blame them, those people did not know what was going on underneath and just saw the big ticket lies. I saw somewhere that, like, if you were a non-propensity voter, like a good voter, like you don't vote very often, that you were only seeing certain clips, like they were targeting their social media to hit you up with clips that are just the big thing. Democrats are doing this, and we're trying to make America great again. These things. But when you go to his rallies, that's when you get the nitty-gritty, which the other people would never vote for. So they never get to see this inner sanctum of the Confederate Party that is all about this evil stuff. So they really don't know. People don't know about some of these religious beliefs that say that I am cursed because of my skin color, and the people of Africa from the Ham and Noah situation. I mean, literally, bro. I'm not playing with you guys. You don't know how deep it is. That's why I'm doing this work. I hope you all appreciate it. But like you said, this is not about left or right. This is about who's going to fight for democracy and who's going to surrender. Red pill or blue pill. That's what this is about. Right? So we've really got to work on our framing, and this is something that I want all of us to work on. Like I told you last time, say the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, because the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King means that he's a man of God, which means that if you're talking about Christian nationalists and they were against the man of God that they martyred, if you call him Reverend, then obviously God was on his side because he won the Civil Rights Act. They're trying to reverse the Civil Rights Act now. The Voting Rights Act. And maybe one day they'll come for the Fair Housing Act. Actually, they to be honest, they stopped the implementation of the furthering Fair Housing Act, which Obama tried to do. That's a whole nother subject. I'm not going to ad lib there because I know we got a little bit. I've been going for over an hour. But yes, these are the pictures of them. Tim Kaine, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Moderates, I'm telling you. That's what the Reverend Doctor talked about. All right. So we got about 2 more videos. And this one, the great Mehdi Hassan. I actually bought his book, How to Win Every Argument. The man is just brilliant. The way he articulates things is just fantastic. And this is the meat and bones of our of today's episode, because it talks about framing. And I can't, and you know, like I said, it's an easy thing for us to do, but I feel like people don't think it's important. So, well, does it matter if I call it regime, or does it matter if I call it, you know, an administration? It matters. All this stuff matters. How you say things, because the underlying narratives that you may not know you're participating in are only serving to allow arguments and permission structures to exist that you will not like. All right? So I love the spineless Democrats. Yes, that's completely right. All right, so let's get into this next video. I'll get back to you on the other side.
This unsatisfactory conclusion, but we have to for X, Y, and Z reason. It was, no, this deal is actually good. And we really hope our Republican partners on the other side of the aisle come in tow and support it, and all to get no reciprocal good faith. And for the consequences of that to be disastrous. Yeah. Because all that did was, as you say, affirm Republican messaging, then affirm the possibility of this horrendous immigration crackdown, what really is just kidnappings. It's crazy.
They constantly affirm Republican messaging. They constantly tell people at home that there are good Republicans over there, ready to work with us, which isn't true and undermines your own messaging. And it's and constantly keep this narrative alive that Republicans are children, treat them like children, and only Democrats are expected in DC to be the adults in the room. I had this argument with my good friend Charlemagne the other day on the Breakfast Club, where he was like, "Look, we don't expect anything from Republicans. We know the Democrats." No, but that's we shouldn't accept that paradigm. We shouldn't accept that framing that only one of our two parties ever has to be responsible. The other party we expect nothing from. And even Ezra Klein, who has become the kind of voice of the quote-unquote moderate centrist Democrats, even Ezra in today's New York Times says, I wouldn't have voted for this deal. He's like, if Thanksgiving air traffic issues, and let's be clear, a lot of the flight chaos is what led to this climb down from these 8 Democrats. But if the Thanksgiving weekend was going to be an absolute disaster with no flights and travel chaos, let Trump and the GOP own that. Let the American people know that they would rather you don't get to Thanksgiving dinner than to give health care to Americans.
He said it brilliantly. First of all, that the podcast he mentions that he was talking to Charlemagne the God on the Breakfast Club is also on Afrimerican TV, so you can go find it there under the multiculture playlist. All right, so he first of all starts that, and this happened. I've been watching the language of these Democrats. They're saying that it wasn't working. What do you mean it wasn't working? It was working. It just hadn't come through yet, but it was working. He said, well, the shutting down wasn't working, so we quit. That's the messaging that we got from some of these Democrats. I wish I should have just got that clip. The excuses. They try to act like, if I'm the bully and I know you are a bitch, pardon my language, I'm going to make sure that I know I'm never going to give up because I know you're going to bitch up in a little bit. And so it's not working. What do you mean it's not working? It's not working because you don't have the cojones to make it work. And they affirm the Republicans. I remember during the shutdown, there was some Democrats talking like, oh yeah, we shut down the government because they... what was it saying? They said that we're going to shut down the government because they don't want to do healthcare. You don't say that. You don't say I'm shutting down the government. No, you're saying that we're fighting for healthcare So because they don't want to do it, they're shutting down the government. You don't say you're shutting down the government. Always affirming. Because you think this is a policy discussion. You're not on a wartime footing. You do not see this as an existential threat. You think that the way, it's hard to break out of habit, and I get it. But you got to get out of it now, or we got to get you out so we can get the people who are ready to fight in. He mentioned the actual word narrative, and I hope that you heard it, because he was talking about good Republicans, that they're good Republicans over there. That's one of the narratives. If you vote for removing health care, you're voting for death. You're not good. Okay? If you're ignorant and voting for death, it's not good. It doesn't matter. So I don't want to hear that. Right? And then the narrative that we treat them like their children. They don't have to be responsible. This is the most powerful narrative. If you get anything from today's podcast, is this narrative right here. That the overall paradigm, that's the word he used, is that it's only the Democrats that have to be the responsible one. I think Stacey Abrams said it in her clip that I played. Right? That during normal times, this is what, this is the right thing to do. This isn't normal times. You can't continue with this paradigm that they get to break all the laws. They get to deny people food stamp, Section 8 vouchers, Medicaid, all the social network. They get to pick people up without due process. They get to disappear people, take them to foreign countries, deport. He gets to put tariffs on. This tariff thing is just about to come. Wait till you see how much is left under the Christmas tree this Christmas. The only saving grace is that Americans know is the Republicans, and that the Democrats are just too nice to fight. That's the only saving grace. But at some point, it's going to go towards the point of no return. I do not know when that's going to happen, but I knew there's going to be a point of no return. A point where no matter what we do, we're going to be in an autocracy. He's just nipping and tucking. They're attacking the Constitution every day. And we're okay with it. We're the ones that are supposed to be responsible. We're the ones that are supposed to reach across the aisle. We're the ones that are supposed to make sure that, everything is working right and we're following the laws. We're the ones bound by laws. They use these laws as prison, as shackles for us. Meanwhile, they do whatever they want, and we're in our shackles because we're trying to obey the law. And I'm not advocating for any kind of breaking the law, but when you have the advantage, when you have the power, you use it. You push it through and string it through until the very last breath that you have. You do that and let us take care of the fallout. You don't sit there and be over-calculating, overthinking, we go to this, we go to talk. They're not talking. The only reason why they're talking is because you're talking. And if you're talking, you're not fighting. So that's why they like talking. You really think they like talking because they like what you got to say? No. They don't like what you got to say. They don't care what you have to say. The only reason why they're talking to you is because you're talking. And if you're talking, you can't be fighting. That's why. So they want you to talk. They want you to have a conversation. Why? Because they're not doing anything regardless. So the longer you talk, sitting here wasting your time with me, the less time you have to stop me. And that's the real narrative. So all the moderates out there, and I've been saying this for a while, I have moderate liberal white friends, trust me. They don't, every day that passes and all the new, I have been looking less insane and more sane because I've been predicting that these people are doing this from the beginning, even before this Trump 2.0. And people thought And to be honest, this is where, I'm feeling more empowered now, because now I'm like, okay, look, I got to get this word out, because I have been right. Kamala was right. And it's time for these voices to be said, but let them own the pain. All right? Maybe there is some value in looking a little kind now, since we are battling. So I'm not going to even knock that. Because someone will say, well, you see, these are the kind people, these are the ones, and that could bring some voters on board. But let me tell you what, those of you moderates are not going to make it to, the next election, you're going to be out. I guarantee you this. You're going to be out, because we need strong Republicans. Democrats, right? That are going to understand that we are not just the other party. The Confederates have to be responsible too. And you can't continue babying them and giving them all the excuses and the reason why they can't do X, Y, or Z. You have to do that. We cannot be the only responsible, law-abiding party. We need two abiding parties. And the only way you get them to capitulate is you have to fight to the end. And understand they're going to take us down a very dark road. It will get way worse. Our job is to be thinking of how do we pick up the pieces? And how do we save as much of America as we can? But we have to go down this psychosis. It won't be the first white psychosis that we've had to live through. There was a time when y'all thought that y'all could enslave us forever. What a psychotic ideology. Yeah, it lasted for a while, but it's over now, never coming back. There was a time that you felt you could segregate the whole everywhere and pass Jim Crow laws and have white-only fountains. Another mental lapse in white psychology. But because you have the power, we have to, we live in it. That's one of the things when I came to America. The first thing I remember when I moved to America, and I am an American, but my mother's American, I'm bicultural, my mother's African American, my dad's Nigerian, grew up in Nigeria. But when I had to realize that I'm living in I never lived in a white man's world before. It's like all their thought patterns, all what they think, all what they feel is important, we have to somehow capitulate to. I didn't realize it, but that's what it is. And we have to understand that living in that world, and these psychosis is just natural. White people go through these things. And we always understood this. You see, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter whether what they're saying is realistic. If it's ultra-religious and it's apocalyptic, it does not matter what you think about it. All that matters is does the person in power with the power to implement, do they believe in it? And that is true. So you better believe it, because it's coming after you. You think African Americans believe all this stuff that we're substandard and we're dumb and we can't get anything done and we're lazy? You think we believe that? Or we just chalk it up to your white ignorance? You think we believe it? But we understand we have to guard against it because the person in power believes it. So we've got to be in spaces and maybe not act as smart as we need to act, as we are, because we don't want to ruffle any feathers. I have children to feed. I don't want to lose my job. There is a whole. Let me give you a little insight. I hope I don't lose my black card for this. There is a whole nother narrative that African Americans have behind the scenes that once you walk in the room, I could just meet a black person today. We would just be talking. I can met him in a few minutes, and we'd be talking. Man, you know how they are. And a white person I've known for a while walk in, and we'll shut up and just be looking at him. Hi. Let you live in your comfort, because we know your comfort is important. If your comfort is harmed, we could lose our job. We could lose our lives. So let us teach you something about that. Okay? So let them own it. All right? So this is the last video. We're going to let our sister, Stacey Abrams, take us home on some of the things we need to do, right? Because I do want to have a silver lining, and I'll get to you on the other side of this.
The terrifying prospect of losing their... I grew up without health insurance. I know what it means to get sick, to need help, and to be afraid to ask because you're afraid that they will tell you no. Health insurance isn't a luxury. In our society, in this America, health insurance is the way we survive, and their willingness to strip it from us, to hold it hostage, to threaten us if we do not give in is wrong. And we have to believe that we are entitled to right. Because whether you get the ACA or not, if this is allowed to stand, every single one of us will likely see our premiums go up as well. We will likely see health insurance move beyond our ability to control the cost. The cloture decision by Democrats was disappointing. But what we learned on November 4th in those elections is that we can combine our powers. The power to engage and elect, the power to organize and mobilize. We can mobilize our neighbors to overwhelm all of the electeds who are not doing what we need to have them do. Solving the problem isn't rocket science. Look, Congress broke the system with Trump's bailout for billionaires and tried to hide it by shutting down the government. Now it's time for them to do the right thing and just fix it. So here's what we're doing. We're going to show them the receipts. I'm asking you to post or screenshot your premium hike, but please cover up your personal information. And then tag your members of Congress. Use the hashtag #JustFixIt. And if you're looking for information, go to commoncause.org to get the names. If you're up for it, you can also print your ACA renewal notice out, cross out your personal info, and mail a copy to your senators and representatives with a note like, "This is what inaction looks like. Extend the ACA premium tax credits." Let's flood their inboxes and their mailboxes with our stories, because this is about our lives. And civil resistance leaders know that this kind of action has an effect. Our demand is clear: just fix it. Because regardless of what Congress does over the next few days or few weeks, we have to keep up the pressure. So join the SEIU, the National Democratic Workers Association, Caring Across Generations, UNIDOS, Moms Rising, and others to show them how we feel and that we will not be quiet. Because this is one more example of what they're trying to take from us. And this isn't going away. But we must show them that neither are we. So please visit 10stepscampaign.org/justfixit to help us send a message to Washington and to every elected official across this country. Tell them to stop stalling and pretending and just fix it.
Just fix it. Yeah. So, yes, she has this 10 steps campaign, I think .org/fix-it. So please make sure you try and reach out to them. So I'm going to close up now. That was my last video, but I'm going to close up. Oh, real quick, before I close up, I want to show you that we do have our Substack, and you can see there that this is the writing I did behind this. I'm going to try and make it so that there will be some podcasts that do have write-ups to it. So that's that. And I'm going to read you a section that I wanted to read about from the Substack. And that is, okay, so I'm going to read this little bit and then about the historical nature. I wanted to make sure I get it all right. So, but this capitulation isn't anything new. I write a lot about Confederate cultural traditions and practice, and now I will talk about multicultural norms and practices. And this isn't new. After World War, they called it reunion. After the Civil War, they called it reunion and rushed to make it nice. The Amnesty Act of 1872 handed political rights back to most treasonous Confederates like it was nothing. Let's move on, they said. Move on from what? From the bodies and broken contracts and the unpaid labor. Power flowed right back into the same hands. Then the deal that sealed it, the 1877 bargain, troops gone, federal protection gone, Redeemer governments walked right in and slammed the door. Redeemers are the group of people that went in, like after the federal, troops left and started to redeem and reinstate the Confederate ideology back into government. This is when the Ku Klux Klan was basically starting, right? Calm return for newspaper headlines, but not for black folks on the ground. You can call that peace if you want it. It was retreat. The courts did their part. Slaughterhouse in 1873 clipped the wings of the 14th Amendment so badly, privileges or immunities barely meant anything. I don't know how to say this. Cruikshank in 1876 told people massacred at Colfax to go ask the same states that refused to protect them in the first place, rights on paper and not in practice. What followed was policy with teeth, black codes morphing into Jim Crow, voter suppression dressed up as order, sharecropping to keep people tied to the land, convict leasing to make prisons the new plantation. The economy got its cheap labor back and called it law and order. Even the money place hit us. The Freedmen's Savings Bank collapsed and wiped out hard-earning deposits. The message was clear. You can save, you can try, and they can still pull the rug. That's how you teach people to stop believing in institutions. Fast forward, and the same bargains show up in different suits. The New Deal laws that lifted all boats but left out farm workers and domestic workers because Southern bosses demanded it. GI Bill benefits filtered through local gatekeepers who block black veterans. Now, these are just examples of policies I could go on with the redlining and urban renewal, in which certain communities were leveled to the ground, or infrastructure, critical infrastructure like rail lines and transportation stops and subways were denied to those groups. And these was policies, right, to remove blight, right? Because it's urban renewal. It's supposed to be renewed. These are all words designed to get the white liberal moderate, right? It's not so bad. It's not a war. It's just the way it is. Because they're more interested in order than justice. And that I'll urge everyone to go and look at the letter from the Birmingham jail. It was from April 16, 1963, where the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King talks about these white moderates and their and how they are truly the real issue. Because you see, even when we fight, they can undercut us. That's what they did here in this case. And this is this is the way it is. So I want to thank everyone. It was 1:33. I want to thank 1 hour, 33 minutes. I want to thank everyone that for watching the Redline Narratives podcast. Like I said, I want you to follow us on all the social media. This platform is brought to you by the Afrimerican Culture Initiative, whose mission is engineering restorative bridges in underserved communities. And we hope that you support this bridge, Afrimerican TV programs. We have youth podcasts. We have our branded media events and products like the Redline Narratives, Lost Cultural Halls of Boston, our documentary series. We have our Black History Month event series, Boston Redline 88, and we have even walk-in tours. So when you subscribe and like, you're supporting these things, and this is our 10th anniversary. And for our 10th anniversary, we would like to, we are going to grandfather all the people who are part of our team now, who are subscribed to us now. We're going to grandfather you into our membership when we get to that level. So please make sure that you subscribe and like, and then we're going to make sure that you get into our membership column. And on December 15th, we're going to be releasing the Redline Narratives, Lost Cultural Hubs of Boston on YouTube for everyone to see. So please, please, please make sure that you drop a like and subscribe, because you're supporting something much bigger. You're supporting the culture to thrive here on Afrimerican TV. That picture in the middle, so I told you this last Saturday, I was at the Access Film Festival. The documentary got screened. So I want to thank Sean and Mara there for coming by and supporting Afrimerican Academy Redline Narratives documentary. They really enjoyed it. We know you will too. So make sure you subscribe. So December 15th, which will be our 10th anniversary, you'll be able to get that as well. All right. So please make a donation. We are a 501c nonprofit organization, so any donation you receive will be able to be written off your taxes. And this is another way you can fight. I think that this is important for everyone to know. Please, when you find out, it doesn't have to be the Afrimerican Academy, but find out through your accountant how much you can actually donate legally to a nonprofit and take it off your taxes. You don't want to fund this government. Okay? What you want to do is pay your taxes to the 501c3, the federal taxes to the 501c3. Find out from your accountant what you can do. And please make sure that you give the maximum amount that you're legal on. See, America is full. We've got free speech. You don't have to pay your taxes directly to the government. You can pay portion of it as long as the amount you're legally allowed to a nonprofit. So find your local nonprofit, whatever you're passionate about, whatever skill you've got, you donate it to that nonprofit. There's another thing, because everybody say, what can I do? You've got skills. If you're a lawyer, give free legal advice to your local nonprofit. What can I do? If you are a doctor, go to a community and try to open up, try to go to some health forums or open up some health, educate people. Whatever it is, that is what this is going to look like. That's what the multicultural economy looks like. It looks like a whole lot of love, and I think this is something that we can all do. So please, if you have it, make sure you donate. If you don't have it, donate a like, subscribe to this channel. Also, like I said, we have our Substack. I didn't update this, but this is the Culture War Unveiling Narrative. That's my first Substack, so we've got 2 now. So go read them and tell me what you think. Leave comments, because I definitely want to get better at this. I know I am getting better in this, but it takes time, and we are going to make some momentum. Also, we've got the Redline Narrative merch. So this Christmas, please, we got 10% off going all the way through Christmas for our 10th anniversary. So please make sure you get the merch there. And yeah, once again, please, thank you once again for supporting Afrimerican Culture Initiative, Afrimerican Academy, Afrimerican TV, Redline Narratives, podcast. Once again, we're here to examine all these narratives on YouTube and wherever they may be that is affecting your Redline communities. So stay tuned, stay blessed, and we'll catch you next week on Redline Narratives podcast. Take care, ladies and gentlemen. Bye.